Hello my dear friends, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto got harem with Hinata, Sakura, Kurenai, and Tenten, Part 2. Let's start the fanfic. Naruto jabbed his punches repeatedly trying to recreate the same image he had seen with the caterpillar man. Naruto had been at it for weeks but he wasn't improving nearly fast enough. When Naruto had saw the man exert rapid kicks and punches against some training posts, the whiskered blonde had stood watching in awe. The man's punches and kicks were so ferocious, air seemed to have coated his movement with friction due to the intense speed. As soon as the punch or kick extended as far as it would go, the air that coated his hand would then slam into whatever was in the direction of his kick or punch. Apparently, the man in green was just going that fast and strong. It had been a whole day since the incident with the puppy and every day since then, Naruto had been working on his taijutsu. Well, he was trying to, but he didn't know how to make himself as fast as the caterpillar man. Quite frankly, it was pissing him off. Naruto let out a frustrated growl. How the hell does he do it? Is he even human? Like how the hell does someone? Hello my youthful friend. Came a booming earnest voice. Naruto paled. Shit. Naruto turned and faced the eccentric man as he forced a tight smile on his face. Hello sir. The man let out a booming laugh. Haha. My dear youthful friend, there is no need to address me in such a manner. It is most certainly an unyouthful feeling to be addressed as such. You can address me as the green beast of Konoha. Or rather than that, you can call me by my other youthful moniker. That title is nothing other than Konoha's noble beast. Meta Guy the mighty green Konoha gentle beast at your service. Naruto's sweat dropped. This guy is weird as hell, I better get the hell out of here. Okay, Guy-san, I was just going to go and leave, so pardon me. Suddenly, the exuberant demeanor of Guy ceased to exist as a more ominous presence exuded from his person. Why must you go? You seemed keenly interested in my training. It is certainly most unyouthful for someone to watch someone with introducing themselves beforehand. Naruto gulped and paled once more. Shit. He knew. He's probably gonna kill me. I don't stand a chance against someone like him. What the hell should I do? Should I try and run or should I just apologize and get my beating now? Deciding that running away might incite a more brutal beating, Naruto kneeled and bowed, touching his forehead to the ground. Visibly shaking, Naruto managed to crack out an apology in a broken voice. Sorry sir. I was just training when I stumbled upon you sir. Please don't hurt me too much. Guy frowned. The voice was quiet and broken. Just what have they done to you Naruto-kun? He wished he could have been there for the boy, but as one of Konoha's top Junin, Guy was forced to do many A2S ranked mission. Hence the reason he wasn't in Konoha majority of his time. He knew of the rotten behavior of the villagers and various shinobis, but he never expected the usually cheerful boy to be this broken. Guy could see the fear and shame in the boy's eyes. The sorrow and the suffering. Guy shook his head and took on his usual exuberant manner. It would do no good for him to reprimand the boy. Naruto waited with his head bowed, trembling with unbridled fear. So it came to him a great surprise when he heard an equally unrestrained laughter. Confusion on his face, Naruto looked up to see the bowl-cut man had thrown his head back with his hands on his hips. Never fear the power of youth my dear boy. Stand proud and never fall short of yourself. Let the power of youth guide you. Naruto was confused. Just what the hell was this guy, pun intended, saying? Did he want him to stand up? Naruto slowly got up, all the while watching the man rant on about the springtime of youth. Seeing that the man didn't seem to focus on him, Naruto slowly backed away before turning to leave. As Naruto walked away, he let out a sigh of relief. That guy was dangerously happy. In fact, if he hadn't gotten away in time, Naruto was sure he would have been involved in some bat crazy shit with that A strong grip found itself on Naruto's shoulder, effectively stopping him from moving. Yep. Kami sure must have hated him. And where are you going, my friend? With the springtime of youth guiding us in the will of fire, we shall be the greatest noble gentle beasts to have ever lived. Yep. It was confirmed, Kami hated him all right. Naruto fell face first into the grass and groaned as every muscle in his body screamed in protest to any movement. He had spent 2 weeks with Guy-sensei and found it to be the worst idea, ever. Apparently, Guy-sensei knew all along that Naruto had been watching him train. So Naruto had asked why it took so long for him to actually confront him if the man knew he was there the whole time. His answer was absolutely absurd. Youth. That was all he said. Literally. Youth. With a big questioning tone ending the answer. What kind of backwards answer was that? Whatever. Naruto knew he couldn't possibly understand anything about the strange man. The man was just too damn youthful. That was the most appropriate way Naruto could put it. Well, there were other words he could use to describe the man, but it was borderline insulting, if not insulting at all. The conversation steered to Naruto and Guy actually introducing themselves to each other. That in turn led the conversation about why Naruto was watching him. Hesitantly, Naruto told him he was trying to train himself by watching the Junin, because no one ever tried to help him. Waterfalls gushed out of Guy's eyes as he embraced the Jinchuriki into an extremely bone-crushing hug. Screaming things along the lines of how youthful this generation was and how everyone was unyouthful for neglecting the hidden gem that was Naruto. Naruto felt touched even though he was running out of air. The pressure was immediately released and he was given some space as Guy kneeled and placed both his hands on the blonde's shoulder. Naruto hurriedly replaced the oxygen that was sorely missing in his lungs. My dear youthful Naruto-kun. I would be honored to have you under my tutelage. Please accept my youthful plea. Guy all but begged. Bewildered, Naruto simple nodded and rushed out a carefree, sure Guy-sensei. Just stop crying for please. Unbeknownst to Naruto, those words would forever indebt him into a cycle of torture for Kami knows how long. That very same day, Guy-sensei decided that the free time Naruto had for the rest of the month due to the Uchiha. Every single second of it. So Guy had Naruto stretch out right then and there, right before forcing him into a brutal workout regimen. Push-ups on top of push-ups, sprints after sprints, sit-ups after sit-ups. It was a continuous cycle of plyometrics exercises that uses body weight as the primary conditioning factor. That was his first day training with Guy-sensei and his body was absolutely destroyed. He could barely get home and once he did, he simply sat in the tub with the showerhead running. He was so goddamn tired that he almost fell asleep in the bathtub. A freaking bathtub. Of course, the very next day, he found himself going back to that training ground like Guy-sensei had told him to. To his horror, he found that he would be put through the same damn torturous routine. Only with added repetition of all the exercises. This repetitive yet grueling training routine continued for the rest of the first week. When Naruto had asked why all he was doing basic exercises, Guy just looked at him with a knowing look. Ah, my dear Naruto-kun, you must be patient, but I suppose I could tell you so your youth doesn't diminish. This week was dedicated to enhance your physical traits, especially your speed. We will continue this for the rest of this week before I teach you my own personal style. Guy finished with a cheery smile and his patent nice guy pose. Naruto ignored the hideous pose with stars in his eyes, your own personal style. Yada. Quote. Guy chuckled before beaming with his ultra-white teeth, indeed Naruto-kun. We will indeed reach the peak of youth. Pumped up, Naruto cheered with his exuberant sensei, completely unaware of the torture training he was in for. Yo Gigi. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and looked up to the source of the voice. Ah, hello Naruto-kun. How are you? I'm feelin' pretty youthful, Dadbayo. Instantly hearing the word, youthful, the Sandame stood in front of Naruto with a very serious look on his face. How far did you fall, Naruto? How deep has he rooted his influence into you? I will not allow for this treachery to stand. Nani. What the hell are you talking about, Gigi? Empty your belongings right now. The village leader screamed. Needless to say, when the most powerful ninja in the entire village, and arguably the entire elemental nation screamed at you in a wild and crazed manner, you obey. Without missing a beat, Naruto threw out all his stuff, which wasn't a lot, just a bunch of random snacks and a green leotard suit that he had received from Guy-sensei several moments ago. Immediately spotting the heinous clothing apparel, the man known as the professor weaved through rapid hand signs before screaming, Kaden, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique. A giant ball of flame crashed into the leotard, effectively obliterating it from existence. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed as he plopped down into his seat. He wiped a sweat that had been rolling down his forehead. Phew, crisis avoided, right, Naruto-kun? Naruto stared blankly at the pile of ashes in front of him. Sure, if you say so, Gigi. The Sandame clasped his hands together with a serene smile on his face. Now, Naruto-kun, what did you come here for? Or is this just a surprise visit? Naruto's sweat dropped at the fact that the village leader was pretending that the event of what just transpired didn't even happen. Oh well, actually, Gigi, I know this might sound a bit crazy. Naruto pursed his lips, but I was maybe wondering, if I could drop out of the academy. A mixture of surprise and horror fixed itself onto the old wizened man. Naruto. I thought you wanted to become a ninja. Sarutobi paled. There wasn't anything he could do to stop the young boy, but seeing as he was the Yondaime's heir, Sarutobi didn't think there were any other avenues for the fourth's legacy. Oh no, Gigi. Naruto hastily spoke, seeing the mini panic attack that the old man was having. I still want to be a shinobi dadbayo. I was just wondering if I can get an apprenticeship. I think I found a teacher, and I recall reading apprenticeships takes you out the academy until the genin exam or something like that, right? Sarutobi nodded. Indeed. If one were to find a junin or a tokubetsu junin, special junin, that was willing to teach them, they could, with the Hokage and council's approval, skip out on the rudimentary years of the academy. Are you still with me? Naruto nodded excitedly. He had read something along those lines before he got kicked out of the library several days ago. Now if he could just get Guy-sensei to agree with being his mentor, he could finally get out of the damn academy. If you were to successfully find a Junin sensei, someone who I would evaluate and deem worthy, you would train with him or her after a few pieces of paper get approved and whatnot. You would then be taken out of the academy, as I told you, until either the last few weeks of the academy or the last year, whichever your mentor and I think would suit you better. No matter what though, you will be placed back into the academy for team placement and tests. Naruto frowned. Would I have to be on a team? Couldn't I just continue under the apprenticeship of the teacher? Sarutobi shook his head. Unfortunately no, there are very few exceptions in that case, but usually no. Konoha's shinobis should be building a sense of familiarity with each other, hence the four-man cell that consists of 3 genins and 1 junin. It is essential for a team to work together as a unit. In fact, you should try and build a sense of camaraderie amongst your classmates while you can. It may even save your life one day. Naruto's frown became even more pronounced. But Gigi, how am I supposed to build a sense of camera, a sense of camaraderie? What was that word, Gigi? Sarutobi chuckled. Camaraderie is the word you're looking for. It means a bond that has been developed because you spend time with the person a lot. Oh. Naruto took a blank look, but then he took on an excited look. So does that mean we have a Kamara caramel Kerga? The fancy bond word. Do we have one of those, Gigi? The Sandame Hokage laughed heartily. We sure do, Naruto-kun, one of the closest. Naruto beamed before his face fell into a somewhat of a distraught state, but Gigi, how am I supposed to build that bond with others if no one is willing to try? It takes two people trying to have any form of relationship. Sarutobi looked thoughtfully at the now 10-year-old boy. It surprised him that such a young child could voice that kind of a deep thought. You're right, Naruto-kun. It seems in my old age that I tend to forget about a lot of things. I'm sorry. Naruto waved him off. It's okay, Gigi, cause we still have that bond, and as long as you're there, I think I'll be okay. A pang of sadness shot through the heart of the Sandaime. How could one boy who bears the weight of such a massive burden remain so vigilant? The Hidden Leaf's Hokage gave Naruto a fond smile. Indeed, Naruto. Now, who or what gave you the idea of taking on an apprenticeship? Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, no one actually gave me the idea, but I've been training with Guy Sensei lately and he's such a great teacher, and on top of that the academy. Well, I don't really have a lot of friends there, and it feels like some people are out to get me. Sarutobi Hiruzen face-palmed. Of course it was Guy. That would explain the youthfulness of Naruto's verbal use of the cursed word earlier. The Sandaime then narrowed his eyes as he registered the rest of the young Jinchuriki's words. Sarutobi sighed. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but Maida Guy is one of our top 3 Junins of Konoha, and Konoha is in dire need of her strongest ninjas. And because. What? Top 3? Sugui. Naruto screamed excitedly. The Hokage sent Naruto a look. Whoops. Sorry, Gigi, I just got a bit excited. Hehe. Naruto apologized bashfully. It's fine. Just make sure to let other people finish their speech. Sarutobi coughed. Ahem. Back to what I was saying. Because he is such a powerful shinobi, dangerous missions often dictates him to take it. Usually, he can back out of it, but, at the moment, we need every ninja we can get. I can try and talk to him and the council, but there is no guarantee. Yada. Thank you, Gigi. Naruto, I'm not promising anything. The Sandaime warned. I know, but you trying for me is more than enough for now. Naruto honestly replied. The Hokage rewarded him with a warm smile before playfully scowling. Alright, now scramble on, Naruto. These paperwork aren't going to do themselves. Naruto waved goodbye and eagerly ran to find out just where the caterpillar-eyebrowed Junin was at. The Sandaime then spoke to seemingly no one. How much did you hear? An Anbu member suddenly materialized and replied lazily, enough for me to know he wants to get an apprenticeship with Guy. The wizened old man chuckled. Indeed, so how is that going, by the way? May I remind you that this is your first report for the task I've given you. The tall Inu masked Junin with a combination of white and silver hair yawned. Hi Hokage-sama. Regarding the A-ranked mission of investigating what Naruto Uzumaki has been doing for the duration of the break from school, do I have to do this? The Hokage simply glared in response. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Alright, back to it, Let's see. He's been learning some Goken Iron Fist. He has the basic beginner katas down already. The Hokage looked surprised. Wow, 1 month and he's already caught up. Most impressive. Actually, Hokage-sama, he's only been training with Guy for a few weeks now, and he's only started the Goken style several days ago. The Sandaime's eyes widened. What? That's insane. You are telling me that it took him 2 to 3 days to learn the basics? Kakashi nodded. For him to learn that in a few days would indicate he's a prodigy. Wait, that would actually make sense seeing as he learned the Kage Bunshin Shadow Clone in a single hour, but the academy shows that he's the dead last. But judging from what Naruto said earlier about the people out to get him unless, oh no, the Sandaime murmured to himself softly, yet loud enough for Kakashi to hear. Kakashi was a bit confused. How did the boy knew how to perform Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu? That technique was an A- ranked jutsu. How the hell did a 10-year-old boy learn that? Hokage-sama, did you figure out something regarding the academy? And may I inquire as to how the boy knows the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu? Kakashi asked with a curious look. The Sandaime rubbed his head in frustration as an upset visage was adopted upon his face. At the moment, it is no more than a hunch, but it seems as if the boy's grade are based on a slightly skewed standard compared to the other students. This hunch will be investigated very thoroughly, of course, but still, to think that the academy teachers were sabotaging a student, it is most disgraceful. Kakashi nodded in agreement. He deduced the sabotaging of Naruto's education to the Kyuubi no Kitsune. It made sense. After all, many people were still wounded from the traumatic event a decade ago. To Kakashi, Naruto was his sensei's son. As soon as his Anbu services was over, he was going to see that the boy was taken care of one way or another. It was the least he could do for his late sensei. However, the Sandaime's response didn't answer the question of how Naruto learned an A-ranked Kinjutsu. And what about the Kinjutsu Hokage-sama? Who taught him to use such a dangerous Kinjutsu? Kakashi inquired. No one. The Sandaime replied gravely. No one would ever teach him anything, Kakashi-kun. That is why he is so obsessed with Guy and becoming his apprentice. Guy isn't biased towards him at all and he is actually willing to help Naruto-kun. Kakashi took on a perplexed expression. So how did he learn it? If there was no one to teach him, how could he have learned it? Unless he had a scroll and taught himself it, but even then, it's nearly impossible to learn that jutsu from a scroll with a teacher to aid you, much less teach yourself, so how did he? That is exactly what he did, Kakashi. He taught himself without a teacher, in a single hour. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. Wait, how? How did he get his hands on the scroll? Unless, Kakashi's eyes widened as he realized how the boy got his hands on the scroll. The Mizuki incident. The Sandaime nodded solemnly. Kakashi slumped into a chair as he took off his mask. He's a genius. Kakashi whispered almost reverently. Indeed he is, but he may be more of a kinesthetic genius like his father. Nonetheless, he has an unknown amount of potential and that is why it is most troubling that the academy teachers were and most likely still are hindering him. For this reason, I'm sending you on a mission to figure out which teachers are sabotaging him. Do you accept, Hatake Kakashi? Kakashi's eyes hardened. Hi, Hokage-sama. The last week and a half went by fairly quickly, yet Naruto found himself unable to conjure the courage required to talk to the taijutsu master about becoming his apprentice. Naruto didn't know why he was so scared. Maybe it had something to do with asking for something from someone. He has never ever in his short entire life asked someone for something like this. Sure, he asked for little things like questions, but that was shot down with the teachers screaming at him or throwing his stuff out the window. Well, he suppose he asked for ramen every once in a while. But that was neither here nor there. Deep down inside, Naruto knew what he was scared of. Rejection. He was ashamed to admit it, but he didn't like rejection even though rejection played a big part of his whole life. He had promised himself and Iruka-sensei that he would become better, but that particular facet of his misfortunate life was always there, looming over him like a never-ending storm. Sure, every once in a while there was a ray of hope like Guy, Gigi, Iruka-sensei, Itachi and the Ichiraku family, but good things never lasted. Iruka and Itachi were prime examples of that. It was just how his life went. Regardless, even if Guy-sensei rejected him, it wouldn't be anything new to him. Still, Guy was quickly becoming one of his precious people. But being rejected by his precious people is Naruto's ultimate fear. This thought was realized when Itachi had left him. In a way, Naruto had interpreted Itachi leaving Konoha was a way that nothing had tied him to the village, not even Naruto himself. The feeling of rejection from a person Naruto had held in such a close and high regard tore him apart. Maybe his life wasn't meant to be enjoyed. Hokage Gigi told him that there was a balance in this world. Maybe his life was weighted in misery and sorrow so others could be better off. Naruto chewed on his inner cheeks as he mulled over his somewhat gloomy thoughts. He in a deep breath and exhaled as he came to a decision. I have to do this today before it's too late. Otherwise I'll be stuck at the academy forever. So with that thought in mind, Naruto set out to find his current taijutsu teacher. Naruto looked all over the place but couldn't find him. Naruto frowned and tried thinking of where the man could possibly be. He decided he would recheck Guy Sensei's favorite training ground, so he headed to Team 9's training ground. Something about this training ground is where he was taught to open gates from his father or something like that. What the hell was that supposed to mean anyways? Everyone knew how to open a gate. You get a key and put in the hole, or you can pick it. Either way works. Naruto knew how to do both, so opening gates wasn't all too impressive to him. Sigh. If only the boy knew. He searched for hours. He made a bunch of cage bunchins and directed them everywhere. Through several trials, he learned that he would gain their memories and regain his chakra on top of that. He briefly wondered, I wonder if they could work with training. Nah, that'd be too overpowered. Naruto sighed tiredly. He felt as if he checked every nook and cranny for the self-declared. He decided he would mentally disable his clones in a few minutes if he had no further luck. A few minutes had passed and gave a frustrated growl. He sent a mental signal to his clones to dispel themselves and instantaneously felt the effects. He promptly blacked out. Waking up with a searing migraine, Naruto groaned as he uprighted himself with some difficulty. Eyes half-lidded, Naruto let out a prolonged note to self. Do not dispel 100 clones at once, he dully noted to himself. Naruto smacked his lips and tasted the vague hue of morning breath. Gross, smells and taste like rotten ramen. He must have been sleeping for a short amount of time because the sun was still overhead shining brightly down on the training grounds he was currently occupying. Well, I guess I'll go home for now. Guy Sensei doesn't seem to be around Kono. Snap. Naruto suddenly became alert as he heard the snapping of a twig. The sharp crack came from behind him as Naruto jumped to his feet and tensed. His eyes panned around the area in which he thought he had heard the disturbance from. As Naruto scanned the area before him, he tried smelling the air for a sign as to who or what was near him. As he took a particular big whiff of air, he relaxed and let out a breath of relief before he called out, Guy Sensei. I know it's you. You can come out, Dadbao. A shiny-eyed Maida guy suddenly appeared before Naruto. Naruto-kun. Amazing you were able to detect me. Your youthful senses are still top-notch, I see. Much to Guy's surprise, the young Jinchuriki didn't respond. In fact, he looked a bit nervous rather than his usual response of being annoyed or happy with his youthful speech. Guy, with a serious visage, kneeled before the boy and asked the young whiskered blonde before him with slight worry, Naruto-kun, I sense that there is something troubling you. Naruto gave a nervous chuckle. Hey, well you see Guy Sensei, I was talking to the Hokage Gigi about apprenticeships and I was, wondering if, you. Guy, immediately seeing where Naruto was going with this, interrupted. Naruto, as much as I'd love to mentor you, I don't think I'll be able to. Konoha is in a dire need of their Junin at the moment. As soon as school starts back up for you, I'll be taking a lot more A and S ranked missions. Guy explained. Oh, a crestfallen Naruto responded. Okay. Well, thanks anyways, Guy Sensei. I still appreciate with what you've taught me so far. And WHO said our youthful training was over. You must remain youthful, my dear Naruto. Guy cried out. Naruto looked confused, but didn't you just say you can't train me anymore? Guy jumped into the air and did multiple flips before landing in his nice guy pose, teeth shining. He responded with enthusiasm, my dear Naruto-kun. I simply said I would be taking more missions. However, the springtime of youth waits for no one. From here on out, weekends and breaks shall be dedicated to taijutsu and youth training. Naruto beamed as the man continued to rant about youth. Some training was better than nothing. The fact that Guy would make time for the class dobi and the village pariah spoke volume to the young Jinchuriki. So happy in his thoughts, the young blonde ran and tackled the leg of one surprised Maida guy. Said man looked down in surprise. This was the first show of physical affection that Naruto had shown for him. Guy smiled and reached down to pat the young boy's head, but just as quick as the young boy had hugged him, the Jinchuriki jumped back with morbid horror on his face. The Jinchuriki felt an intense terror wrench at his stomach. He had accidentally hugged the man out of the immense gratitude he was feeling. Although he had taken to training with the man, in all the few weeks, he never showed any sort of affection a normal 10-year-old would attach to an older, somewhat fatherly figure. Naruto's breath became frantic as he felt a slight shiver of anxiety take place in his heart. There was no doubt Guy-sensei would feel disgusted at the fact that the village pariah had touched him. The azure-eyed boy averted his gaze downward and quickly apologized. "I'm sorry Guy-sensei, I didn't mean to touch you. I was just so happy that someone wanted to spend more time with me and I forgot that no one likes me even looking at them, much less." Again, Guy understood the implications the boy was making before he finished his statement. The green-cladded Junin then scooped up the boy in a tight hug and had a ridiculous amount of tears torrenting down his cheeks. "Oh Naruto-kun, you must never be afraid to show the passion of youth. Don't you worry about nothing, my cute little student. Your youth will never be held back as long as I, Konoha's noble and gentle beast, reside here in Konoha." Guy then went into another speech about super youth as Naruto lost conscious from the lack of air. Still, Naruto smiled as he fell into bliss. He had heard enough of Guy's youthful speech to know he didn't do anything wrong. The rest of the break from school went without much incident. Brutally train, eat, train some more, sleep, repeat. That was the cycle that Guy had thrown Naruto in. During that time, Naruto had managed to get the intermediate katas down for the Goken style. Naruto begged Guy to start teaching him the advanced katas, but apparently the blonde wasn't physically able enough. Guess he had to be taller, quicker, stronger, and most importantly, needed to be faster. Basically, he had to become un-Naruto-like as possible. Which, by the way, was total bullshit to him. When Naruto heard the prerequisite to learn the advanced katas, he became a bit confused. "Guy-sensei, I thought being faster and quicker were the same thing." Guy nodded sagely. "Actually, that seems like a common misconception amongst the general consensus. Being fast means you are capable at moving at a high speed. Quickness is how fast you can accelerate." "Oh, I see." And truth to be told, Naruto actually did understand. It made sense to him. Guy furrowed his massively thick brows in confusion and slight astonishment. "You do?" He had thought the boy would have needed more explaining. Naruto scowled and nodded. "I'm not a baka, you know." Guy gave a hearty laugh and patted the boy. "Regardless, my youthful student, your quickness is surprisingly. I'd peg you at about a high chunin level." Naruto pouted. "What? Is that it? Man, I thought I'd at least be a junin." Guy simply shook his head. "I am sure you'll get there one day, my youthful student. After all, it's not every day a 10-year-old can say they possess skills of a chunin." To this, Naruto pouted before looking up with determined eyes. He then went on a verbal splurge of how he was gonna be the best. Guy simply looked at the boy with disguised observance. "If I were honest, Naruto-kun, you'd be mid-junin level, but we don't want your youthfulness to overflow." Obviously that's an analogy for his ego. Guy smacked the boy in the back. "Also, I got a gift for you." Naruto halted mid-rant and looked at his taijutsu sensei. "Are you serious, sensei? That's freaking AWESOM. Wait. Guy sensei, how am I supposed to get taller? Isn't it all genes or whatever?" Guy's visage turned from slightly speculative to morbidly serious. "Naruto, listen to me. I need you to listen and comprehend. This may be the most life-altering lesson you will have ever heard." Naruto gulped. "In order to get taller," Guy started. Naruto nodded furiously with rapt attention. "You must stop eating ramen. Wait for it. No. A sullen Naruto walked into the academy. Guy had taken the entire weekend to revamp Naruto's lifestyle. The mighty taijutsu specialist had dragged Naruto back to the young Jinchuriki's apartment screaming how unyouthful Naruto's diet had been. Naruto had begged his taijutsu sensei to not do what he thought the eccentric man was about to do. Unfortunately, he did just that. In a fit of green blur, the man had cleaned out Naruto's apartment in mere seconds. He had found everything. And Naruto meant everything. Nothing related to ramen was spared. He even found the secret stash of the limited edition underneath the floorboard, and as soon as he finished, Guy quickly shouted a heartfelt, "Youth," before running to the grocery store and returning with vegetables. A lot of vegetables. Apparently, Guy had somehow managed to obtain several cookbooks from wherever the hell while he went to the store. He came back in a rush and dumped them unceremoniously on the kitchen table before walking over to Naruto. "Yosh, my dear youthful student, you must study these cookbooks and fix your unyouthful lifestyle, or we shall run to around Konoha 50 times on not but our pinky fingers." Naruto paled. He knew full well that Guy was being completely serious about that. So for the remainder of his break, Naruto was constantly reading on how to cook healthier and more nutritious food while being guided under Guy's tutelage for his taijutsu. So here he was, reading a freaking cookbook in class. Naruto sighed as the first telltale sign of the academy students entering filtered through his ears. He was probably going to get shit for reading a cookbook in class. Whatever, if he wanted to get any better, then people's opinion of him shouldn't matter to him. Well, that's what he wanted to think, but alas, he was still a 10-year-old. Although to his credit, he managed to ignore all the questioning whispers about the dobi having a cookbook and the feeble attempts of his classmates trying to goad a reaction out of him. Why does the dobi have a recipe book? Probably for a prank. Look, he has a book on nutrition too. It's probably just has that as a title. It's probably porn though. Naruto's eye twitched, but he reeled his irritation in and read on. A particular civilian classmate's annoying whisper reverberated through the classroom. "OMG, what if he's dieting? He's probably fat underneath that baggy jumpsuit he has." Naruto mentally cringed at her voice and inwardly sighed. That was by far one of the stupidest thing he had ever heard. Suddenly everyone laughed as another random student responded to her not too subtle whisper, "The dobi is a shrimp. He's the shortest and the weakest in the class." Naruto fought the desperate urge to scowl and challenge them to show how scrawny he was. Being shorter than everyone else was a sore spot for him because he wasn't just shorter than all the guys, he was shorter than all the girls too. Even the timid Hinata. However, instead of beating that particular owner of the last insult, Naruto gritted his teeth and continued on reading instead of reacting crassly. If he did, that would have meant that they had successfully got him to react to their stupid insults. So he kept calm and maintained his slightly irritated but mostly calm composure. However, there was one thing he couldn't ignore. The sound of a group of fangirls squealing and stampeding in the hallway to walk next to a certain object of their affection announced the arrival of a certain Uchiha. Naruto turned his attention back to his book. Great. Sasuke Uchiha walked into class with a glare that radiated hatred. Needless to say, the massacre of his clan didn't bode well with him. When his eyes briefly scanned the room and fell upon a certain Uzumaki, whom was propped on a hand supported by his elbow, looking down at a book without a care in the world, Sasuke saw red and marched over towards the class, dobi, with his fangirls right behind him. Sasuke didn't know why he felt such anger towards the blonde-whiskered boy, but he didn't care. It probably had something to do with the fact that Naruto was the only thing that Sasuke could tie to the memories of his brother. Sasuke knew it wasn't justifiable reason, it wasn't even a rational one, regardless he just simply did not care. Sasuke stood in front of Naruto in a position that demanded attention. He had his arms crossed on his chest and stared at the boy with a raging stare. Students had mostly filled the class by and had noticed the dark atmosphere. When they pinpointed the source of it, they in a huge breath of anticipation. At the sound of the collective intake of breaths, Naruto looked up, finally bringing his attention out of the book into his surroundings. He looked to his right and found a brooding Uchiha shooting daggers via eyes at him. Naruto stared at the boy not 1 foot away from him for several moments. Naruto blinked. Then he shrugged and returned his attention back to his book. Sasuke growled. No one should be ignoring him. He just had his clan massacred. Granted, he didn't see the horrors because before he could even step inside the clan compound, his brother appeared before him and knocked him out cold with a simple neck chop. Regardless, having to wake up to your clan being killed was a very tragic event to wake up to. When he woke up, he decided that he would kill his brother. But first, he needed to get stronger and he was gonna do just that. And he was gonna have everyone witness it. But for everyone to witness it, he needed their attention. At all times. Even the dobis. Naruto, noticing that Sasuke seemed a bit irritated, decided to move to the corner of the room. It was weirding him out that Sasuke was all up in his business. The emo survivor of the Uchiha clan was way too damn close for comfort. Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno along with the rest of the class stood in front of the room staring at the very odd scene before them. Even the Uchiha fangirl club had stopped following the brooding Uchiha and went to the front of the room to witness what was going on along with their classmates. Currently, Naruto was moving about the room and taking seats in different spots. Normally, they would have chalked this off to Naruto just being Naruto, but the odd thing was wherever the blonde boy moved, a very baleful Sasuke Uchiha would follow at an eerily close distance. When Naruto sat down, Sasuke would be right there, like a second shadow. No one really knew what to do. Naruto sighed for what seemed like the 10th time since class started. The Uchiha survivor was seriously starting to piss him off. Naruto was seriously debating if it was worth using Guy's gift, he was really that mad. But just as he decided to do something, a disheveled Inuzuka heir pushed his way between the crowd panting. Kiba Inuzuka looked like he hasn't slept in a week. And truth to be told, he hasn't. The source of his disgruntled ire was currently tucked into his armpit. It was taking all of the Inuzuka's patience not to obliterate the damn thing. Kiba ran through everyone like a bull and saw Naruto sitting in the corner with the last Uchiha glaring at the blonde. Kiba didn't care. He needed this problem taken care of ASAP. So he marched on over, shoved the survivor of the massacre away, and proceeded to thrust a ball into the arms of Naruto. It's your problem now, the sleep-deprived Inuzuka shouted before sitting down next to the young blonde. Akamaru was perched on top of Kiba's head looking as tired as his owner. Naruto looked at the downed Uchiha before putting his attention on the ball that was shoved into his hands. Noticing the texture of said ball, Naruto frowned, since when were balls furry? Suddenly, the ball unfurled and 2 brown eyes peered back at him. The ball then protruded a wagging tail. And it barked. Naruto blinked furiously. Kiba, what the hell is this? Kiba, what the hell is this? Said Inuzuka boy looked up with tired eyes. What the hell do you think it is, Dobi? It's a dog, ya. Naruto gnashed his teeth in annoyance. I know that. What I meant was, why the hell is it in my arms? 'Cause it's yours now, came a reply that sounded awfully like a yawn. The hell it is. Well it is, Sue. Why can't you take care of it? Naruto yelled. That, my friend, is because that puppy is an absolute bitch, pun intended, and because of it being mixed with 2 dominant and alpha mammals, I can't take care of it. That's what my mom told me anyways, so I'm giving it to you. That told me nothing other than the fact that you're too much of a pansy to take care of it. Kiba's reply was to simply give a loud snore, signifying he was in a deep slumber. Naruto gave a frustrated growl and returned his attention to the puppy. Naruto carefully placed the puppy on the desk and lowered his head so his face was level with the young canine. The puppy jumped forward and gnawed on the blonde's goggle. Disgusted, Naruto took off his saliva-wrapped goggles and placed it on the desk so the puppy could continue chewing it. However, he couldn't help the small smile from stretching on his face. The girls of the class walked forward with a blush on their face. Naruto really looks different with his bangs down. No one wanted to admit how cute the young blonde looked without his stupid giant goggles attached to his forehead. Especially Ino and Sakura. Naruto paid the gathering crowd of girls around him no attention. The puppy was now sitting and waiting expectantly at the boy with his tail wagging happily. The pup tilted his head at Naruto. Naruto mirrored the pup's action and also tilted his head the same way the young canine tilted his head in. Kawaii. The girls all squealed. They couldn't decide which was more cuter, the boy or the puppy. The loud noise brought Naruto's attention to all the girls surrounding him, and when the crowd of females noticed Naruto looking at them weirdly, they all blushed and retreated back to the front of the class. Shrugging at their weird antics, Naruto returned his attention to the puppy. Making a decision, Naruto scooped up the puppy and walked to the front of the class. All the girls waited with bated breath and watched the boy approach. However, they all looked disappointed as Naruto walked past them and towards the door. Sasuke shook with rage. Not only did the class dobe ignore him, but the blonde had somehow managed to rip the attention from everyone that he, a noble Uchiha, had deserved. Dobe, where the hell are you going? Sasuke shouted with rage. Quote! Came the reply of the Jinchuriki. All the boys chuckled while the girls didn't know whether or not to laugh or glare after the recently discovered cute blonde. While everyone was distracted, Ino walked to where Naruto was sitting before he left. She quickly looked around before grabbing the goggles Naruto left behind. I'm only taking it because the dog was so cute. At least, that's what Ino told herself as she stowed it in Kami knows where. Satisfied that no one had seen her, Ino went to sit down in a seat that was surprisingly not near her, Sasuke-kun. Sakura frowned. Why did Ino Pig take Naruto's goggles? Channeling chakra throughout his whole body, Naruto murmured a soft, henge. A plume of smoke encased his body, and instead of a orange-clad ninja and black puppy, a wild-looking boy with red facial tattoos that identified him as an Inuzuka took place. The black puppy turned into that of a white one. Kiba Inuzuka and Akamaru now stood in place of Naruto and his black pup. Kiba grinned and petted Akamaru. The disguised couple of pup and kid then headed towards their home. Kiba reached the Inuzuka compound without trouble and nodded to the guards calmly. On the inside, however, Kiba was nervous as hell. He had never done anything as risky as this. He sighed with relief as the guards simply nodded back. Once reaching what seemed to be the main house, Kiba stepped in and took off his sandals. Once done with that, he called out, "Mom, I'm home." Sume Inuzuka looked naturally feral. She had spiky, untamed brown hair, vertical slit-like pupils, elongated canine teeth and nails. To be honest, when Naruto had first seen her drop off Kiba, he had thought she had looked like a grown-up version of Kiba with womanly curves. A very disturbing notion indeed. "Who the hell are you?" came a very gruff female voice. Kiba smiled nervously. "What do you mean, Mom? It's me, Itai." Sume Inuzuka punched her son right in the forehead, successfully dispelling the henge. In place of where her son was standing, was an orange-clad boy on his rear nursing the Fernubji lump on his forehead. Immediately recognizing the boy as the Jinchuriki, she relaxed. "Come on in, pup, and take a seat in this room." She gestured to a large living room right at the entrance. Naruto nodded fearfully. How did she see through my henge? Even Gigi himself can't see through it unless I messed up something in my speech. "Well, you just gonna sit there or are you gonna come in?" Sume quipped with an eyebrow raised. Naruto stood up abruptly with an "eep" and bowed quickly before scurrying past her. Sume shook her head with amusement. The boy could be quite endearing. Naruto took in his surroundings with an impressed look. The living room was pretty big. The floor was made out of wood and it supported several large sofas in a U-shaped pattern. In the middle was a very long table that was the perfect height for someone to rest their legs on. Naruto smirked. He didn't really think Sume would allow anyone to rest their legs on the table. Actually, he didn't really think anyone was stupid enough to do so. So he sat on his knees in a respectful position while waiting for Sume. Sume's amused expression became even more so when she saw how respectful the brat was being in her living room. As she walked by him, she picked him up by the collar of his jacket and threw him unceremoniously on the couch, eliciting a surprised yelp from him. "All right, spill it, pup. What da ya want?" came the rather crass manner of speech. Naruto sat up and gulped. Well, first, can I ask you a question?" "Shoot. How'd you see through my henge? Hokage Gigi told me it was pretty flawless." "Truth to be told, I didn't even see anything. Your henge was damn near flawless. The only thing you had forgotten was how tired my baby boy was. Kiba hadn't slept well in a whole week cause of some rescue pup." Sume chuckled. Naruto face-palmed. Of course. How could he forget how tired the mutt was? He sighed. "Well, Sume-sama, I came here itai. Sume-san, I don't want that political shit here, ya hear? Besides, it makes me feel old." Sume practically barked as she bopped him on the head. Naruto's sweat dropped. "Hi. Sume-san, Kiba dropped me off a puppy today and I was just looking to return it." Sume looked surprised. "Why don't ya keep it? We have too much of a litter upkeep compared to the number of shinobis in our clan." Naruto grinned nervously and scratched the back of head. I just can't." Sume frowned. "And why is that? Do you perhaps not like dogs?" She growled threateningly. Naruto shook his head frantically. No, I always wanted a dog and stuff, but I don't know how to take care of a dog," he continued softly while looking down. "Plus, I don't think the villagers would like me being happy and they would take him away." Sume's heart shattered. The boy was, in all honesty, was just looking out for the puppy. Automatically, Naruto had earned respect from her just from that statement alone. She sighed. She truly wanted the boy to enjoy the experience of finding companionship and camaraderie in a dog, but the young blonde was right. The villagers would most likely kill the puppy for circumstances that was out of the boy's control. The villagers were truly despicable. She sighed. "All right, Naruto, let me see the puppy." Naruto looked up and beamed. "Thank you, Sume-san." Naruto brought out a sleeping canine out of his jacket and carefully placed him on the table. Sume's eyes widened when she recognized the puppy. "This is the pup that Kiba was talking about." Sume shot a glare at Naruto. "It was you who rescued this pup." Sume's face contorted into a furious expression. "What in Kami he gave this pup to you? What the hell was he thinking?" Hi. Naruto replied nervously. The loud yelling stirred the pup from its sleep, and as it took in its surrounding, when it recognized the scary-looking lady when it had first been brought here by the look-alike boy, it growled. Sume groaned with frustration. "No wonder you wanna give it back, the dog is freaking impossible. It respects no one, it doesn't let anyone feed it, you have to throw food at it from 30 feet away, it pisses everywhere, it shits everywhere, and on top of that, it has some big chakra coils, making it the perfect for a companion, but no, all that potential gone to waste." Naruto frowned, not really understanding where she was going with her rant. "Sume-san, why are you saying that about him? The puppy is actually really nice." "Excuse me?" Sume asked incredulously. "No offense, pup, but this canine is a Sankey Tibetan Mastiff mixed with Grey Wolf. Those two breeds by themselves are super difficult to domesticate. So for you to say it's nice." "I'm serious," Naruto cried out. Sume shook her head in a chiding fashion. Listen pup, don't you think I would know more about this pup? I've spent a week with it and trust me when I say it lets no one near it, and I mean no one. Even me, the head of a Ninken partnered clan. Naruto crossed his arms on his chest defiantly. Well, it played with me when Kiba gave it to me. The head of the Inuzuka clan chuckled. Yeah, and my family love cats. She snided in mirth-filled sarcasm. Listen pup. Go ahead and go home, we'll take care of this problem. She jabbed a finger towards the puppy who bared his teeth towards her. Naruto narrowed his eyes. What do you mean you guys will take care of it? He asked suspiciously. Oh, we'll put it in the pound for several months and if no one wants it, we'll probably give it to a civilian family and if that don't work then, we're most likely gonna have to let it go. And by that, I mean we're gonna have to kill it, Sume grimaced. If it manages to grow up, it'll be too dangerous for it to live, especially without training. She hated this part of her duties, but it just had to be done. Sangki Tibetan Mastiffs were incredibly rare in the elemental nations. As far as she was aware, only one merchant sold them here and he only came once every decade from the very far east, somewhere where that no shinobi has ever been. The fact that the pup was bred from a gray wolf added all the more danger to it. How the Jinchuriki even found the puppy in Konoha was beyond a mystery to her. Naruto frowned. The puppy would probably die if was to be let back out. He really wanted to take care of it, but he just didn't know how. He was at a crossroads with himself, an impasse. Naruto growled in frustration before his eyes lit up with an idea. Sume-san, what if I show you that it's nice? Sume gave a sad smile. The boy was earnestly trying his hardest to save the pup from suffering. It was very much endearing to her. She sighed. Naruto, the only way that this pup would not chew anyone off is if they bonded to it. Sadly, it is only the Inuzuka clan that can bond with the more dominant species of canines. Naruto ignored her and made way to pick the black Tibetan Mastiff up. Sume, alarmed that the boy would do such a reckless thing, lashed out and grabbed the wrist of the Jinchuriki. What the hell do you think you're doing? Naruto rolled his eyes before attempting to shrug her hand off, only to find that the iron vice grip would not budge a single bit. Okay, I was just kidding Sume-san. Can you please let go of me now? Naruto pouted. Sume relaxed and sighed visibly. She retracted her hands. Phew, thank God. Kiba tried bonding with it that way and he got wrecked oi. As soon as Sume retracted her hands, Naruto closed the rest of the distance between him and the dog and scooped him up much to Sume's horrification. Put him down this instant before he, Sume's stern pitch changed into that of a surprised one, before he licks you. Naruto giggled uncontrollably as the puppy ravished his face with licks. A smile slowly drew itself on Sume's face as she quickly retrieved a camera and click. Naruto and the puppy halted their actions with wide eyes. They slowly turned their head towards the source of the noise and click. Oi, what the hell is that? Naruto shouted while the puppy barked in agreement. Click. Sume laughed as she held up a blue cube-like structure. Haha. This is a Polaroid camera. New technology from Sora no Kuni, land of the sky, apparently. It prints out a photo instantly. This is my first time using it so I don't really know. Oh. There's a printer right here. She waited excitedly as 3 strips of photos slipped out of the printer folds. Naruto stared for a few brief moments before shrugging and returning his attention to proving the dog wasn't a rabid killer. Sume kept a cautious eye on the pup and the blonde. She just didn't simply believe that the rebellious dog she had rescued weeks ago was so tamed. Yet, here they were with the alpha-bred pup was licking the blonde's face. There was one plausible answer even though it wasn't likely, especially since the blonde wasn't in any relation to a Ninken-partnered clan. Say Gaki, Sume started off casually as Naruto looked at her. What happened when you first met the puppy? Oh, where to begin? Well, I was walking somewhere and I heard something. Naruto then recounted his tale of saving the pup from 3 bigger dogs and how he waited for the better part of the day to feed the puppy before it passed out. He then explained that he went to Kiba because the villagers weren't really the best option for him. At this, Sum's eyes softened. She knew exactly why the villagers weren't exactly the best option, and truth to be told, she couldn't really blame them. People in general were just simple-minded. Everyone used the poor Jinchuriki as an outlet for all their anger, pain, suffering, and sorrows for their losses. She didn't condone their actions, but she understood why they did what they did and why they acted like they did. She didn't like it, but she understood well enough. Hopefully, when young Naruto is revealed to the truth, he'll be accepting of this as well. But if he wasn't accepting and decided to kill all the wrongdoers in his life and rampage in anger, well, he had every right to be. She knew of what had transpired the night of the Uchiha massacre with the Uchiha, and quite frankly, it was one of the most horrifying things she and the Shinobi Council had even think of. Imagining that happening to Kiba made her shudder with fear and despair. To think that the blonde could still act this normal astounded her. All shinobis ranked Junin and higher were told of what had happened to Konoha's Jinchuriki and most grimaced at the gruesome events retold. There were a few, however, that took on a joyous expression at the gored expense of the child. She gritted her teeth as she recalled how pleased the civilian council and select few shinobis seemed when the Sandaime recalled the brutal event in the counseling chambers. Those bastards need to get a reality check. I swear the next time I see Hokage-sama I'm going to give him a piece of. Can I see those? Naruto asked, effectively cutting off her train of thoughts. Sum was about to ask what he wanted to see when she saw him point towards the photos she had taken of him and the pup. Sum chuckled as she looked briefly the pictures that depicted happiness, shock, and mock anger. She handed them over. You can keep those, pup, and I think you should know something. The moment you saved the dog it bonded with you. Your actions must have struck a chord or something with the puppy because you helped her that day. Naruto nodded in an understanding fashion. Wow. So does that mean that the puppy is a ninkin? I can wait. It's a her. Sum smirked haughtily. Of course it is. The female is of course the superior gender. Naruto nodded sagely. That made plenty of sense. Sakura and Ino were pretty damn bossy and no one dared to go against their wishes. So, what does that mean? I still don't know how to take care of it, and even if I did, the villagers would still probably try and take her away from me. Naruto scowled, and I definitely don't want that to happen. First off, you need to name the dog. I'm tired of you referring to her as an it and her. Dogs should never be treated as an inferior being. They aren't beneath us, they are our equals. Understood. She glared. Naruto nodded without hesitation. He didn't believe any being was lesser than another. He certainly wasn't gonna treat this dog like that. Naruto stroked his chin and looked up. Sum chuckled at the pose the boy struck. It was amusing to see a pondering expression on a 10-year-old boy who seemed to be thinking too hard for his own good. Let's see, Naruto murmured. A name, huh? What should I call you? He turned his attention to the female pup whom was happily wagging her tail at him. How about I read you some female names, Gaki, and you can go from there? Sum offered. Naruto shot her a grateful look and nodded. Yes please. Sum immediately started firing off suggestions. Alright. There's Miho, Tomo, Aika, Amy, Kohaku, Mari, Masa, Rei, Reiko, Setsuko, Takara, Yuriko. She looked at Naruto to see if he had liked any of them. Naruto chewed on his lip and contemplated each name before shaking his head. I don't know, none of the names I like. Are there any more names you can suggest? Shiori, Rin, Maiko, Ko, Kazumi, Kimiko, Kimi. What do those two mean? Kimiko and Kimi, I mean. Naruto asked curiously. Kimiko means Empress Child and Kimi means noble, ya like M. Quote. Naruto scrunched his face in a thinking manner. Do we have to do this today? I just don't know. Sume sighed. Although it's better to engrave the name into the pup's head early in its life, I suppose it's not absolutely necessary, but by the end of this week you'll be deciding on one. Understood. Naruto nodded. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now wait here, I'm gonna go get some books for you to study up on. Naruto groaned and received a love tap on the head. And by love tap, I mean punched. Naruto got punched. Naruto looked up at Sume with a pout. Sume-san. Why'd ya do that? Sume felt a tick growing. Cause Gaki. Whether you like it or not, this dog has bonded with you. You absolutely need to learn how to take care of it. Now stay put or I'll neuter you. Without waiting for an answer, Sume walked off to wherever in the compound to retrieve her books. When she returned, she found Naruto lying on his back and playing with the pup. Sume smiled as Naruto made engine-like noises and maneuvered the female puppy in the air. The puppy seemed to be enjoying itself if the wagging tail and tongue lolling out was any indications to go by. All right, pup, take these books and study up. Leave her the pup here until the end of the week. She still needs proper shots for various things, so I'll take care of that. Make sure you have a name when you come back, alright? Naruto nodded, not realizing the full implications of the conversation. He furrowed his brows as the information sorted itself out in his head. Suddenly, he yelled, wait. So, I'm gonna be the one taking care of it? Sume sighed. Why else would I be giving you information on how to take care of a ninkin? On top of that, you are going to be returning here to name the dog. Why would I have you return and name the dog? Sume looked at Naruto and her eyes softened. The boy seemed torn apart at the revelation that pup was now his. She could tell he was struggling with his wants of receiving a companion and his moral obligation to see the pup being protected. Listen, pup, how about this? I'll babysit the pup until it can fend for itself. I don't want any canine to ever be mistreated. However, that does not mean you can permanently leave him here, understood? Naruto ignored her screaming and nodded fervently. He was both grateful and a bit irritated. Grateful because he was given an opportunity to receive a companion for life, yet slightly irritated that the puppy wasn't going to be with him 24/7. But he supposed that was a fair trade. Arigato gozaimasu, Sume-san. Naruto bowed. Sume found herself chuckling once more. Make sure that I don't regret this. Naruto's eyes gleamed. Oh, you won't, Dadbao. Good. Now scram. Naruto squeaked out an incoherent sound as he hastily scurried out. Naruto poured all his attention to the study materials he received from Gai-sensei and the Inuzuka clan head. At one point, Gai-sensei had stopped by to check up on his student and endeavors for his youthful endeavors. Naruto ignored Gai as the man rummaged through his friends screaming how youthful his stocked items were. As soon as the rant of how amazingly healthy and youthful the innards of his fridge was, he came over with a giant frown. Naruto-kun, I do not recall me giving you that many books. Unless you realized how much youth was contained in the information of these books and you decided that in all your youthfulness. Sume-sama gave it to me. Naruto said casually as his eyes scanned another passage of information regarding chakra-enhanced canines. Naruto looked up when he heard no response regarding youth. He saw a depressed raining cloud overhead on his taijutsu instructor. A humorously depressed and hurt expression on Guy's face appeared along with a gushing stream of tears. Oh, why would you do such an unyouthful action, my student? Have I failed you in teaching the youthfulness of my ways? For my failures I shall run to Suno with a northern cow attached to my chest and. Gai-sensei. Calm down. She's not training me. Guy looked at his student with a glint of hope in his eyes. Well, she technically is training me, but not really. I mean, she is teaching me via these books. Hearing those words, Guy continued wailing. Naruto exhaled a forceful breath in frustration. Guy-sensei. I am going to be getting a dog, so that is why I went to Tsume-san for information on how to take care of it. So will you please calm down? Upon hearing those words, Guy's sullen demeanor quickly did a 180 and he struck his patented nice guy pose. With a thumb up and teeth shining, Guy smiled and laughed boisterously, haha. Of course my youthful student would never abandon me. For my unyouthful thoughts and Naruto furrowed his brows. How long will you take to run 700 laps? 3 hours, my dear student. You expect me to finish all 72 books in 3 hours? Guy his head, whatever do you mean, my dear student? This should be easy for you given that you have the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu at your disposal. Naruto peered at him suspiciously, and what the hell ow? None of that unyouthful language. Naruto pouted as he rubbed the bruise that sported on top of his head, sorry. Geez. Anywho, what does the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu have to do with anything? Other than fighting, all it does is send me memories and I can't really do anything with that besides. Naruto's eyes widened. Oh. Guy exposed all his shining teeth in a bright smile. Indeed, Naruto-kun. I am glad you were able to come to the conclusion on your own. Naruto shook his head and smacked himself in the face for being so stupid. Dang it. I thought I could use the jutsu sort of like that, but I didn't think that anyone could have created something that useful. I only used it to spar with myself at this point. Guy frowned and his voice lacked its usual exuberance, and in place of it was a seriousness Naruto rarely heard. Naruto, who taught you the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu? I'm sorry to say that they didn't do a very adequate job of informing you of all the features to that jutsu. Naruto rubbed his head nervously. Actually, sensei, I sort of learned it by myself. Guy's eyes widened before it narrowed. That particular jutsu was an A-ranked kinjutsu, explain please. So Naruto went into the general gist of what had happened, even Iruka-sensei's death. However, he did not mention that Mizuki had been killed by him. He didn't trust anyone but the Jiji with that piece of information. It wasn't that he didn't trust Guy-sensei, but he didn't the man he had come consider as one of his precious people to change about him. When he had finished his story about the eventful night of the exam Mizuki Tem gave him, he almost went on to telling him about the events that was shrouded with Itachi's involvement. He quickly caught himself though. It probably wouldn't sit too well with Guy-sensei or anyone for that matter, that the village pariah was involved with the mass-murdering traitor to the Uchiha clan. Regardless, Naruto knew it probably wouldn't have mattered if he had told Guy about the brutal torture he received the night of the massacre. Yep, the story with just Iruka-sensei would probably cause Guy to start crying waterfalls whilst hugging him. Much like right now. Turning blue, Naruto managed to croak out a hoarse choke, "See, can't breathe." Although Naruto didn't tell him, Guy already knew what had happened to him on the night of the massacre, as did every other Junin. Guy immediately dropped his chokehold air, hug and apologized with his same old exuberance, "Oh youthful Kami. I apologize greatly for unyouthfully straining your esophagus with my limbs. Oh youthful Kami. Naruto-kun, I apologize greatly for unyouthfully straining your esophagus with my limbs." Elsewhere, a 17-year-old with violet, purple styled in a short, spiky, fan ponytail-haired female clad in a tan trench coat walked by. She had light brown, pupil-less eyes and she wore a fitted mesh bodysuit that stretched from her collarbone down to her thighs. The mesh body armor showed off her rather curvaceous figure. Her trench coat had a purple inseam and a pocket on each side. Underneath her trench coat, she was wearing a dark orange mini skirt, a dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. Next to her was another female of the same age. Kurenai Yuahi was a fair-skinned woman and she had long black untamed hair reaching her upper back. Red in color outfit consists of a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible. Bandage wrapping covered her upper thighs and nothing covered her long and rather attractive legs. However, the most prominent feature were her eyes, a vibrant red that held most men mesmerized. Anko Mitarashi choked on her dango. She blanched and dry heaved as she recognized the voice. "Oh Kami, I knew he was gay." Kurenai frowned. I'm sure there is an explanation for his choice of words. Yet Kurenai couldn't help but think that the evidence was overwhelmingly in the favor of Guy playing for the other team, so to speak. Come on Nai-chan. He's a gay, homo, flaming flamingo. Take your pick. But you heard it loud and clear. Anko cried out. Anko looked at the sake bottle and cup in her hand and promptly threw away the cup that was used to pace the rate of consumption for said alcohol and downed the whole bottle in one go. She winced slightly at the amount of burning that followed after drinking the liquor, but it had to be done. I've totally gotta forget about that shit. Never ever do I want to hear anything. With that thought, she procured another sake bottle from thin air and downed that one in one go as well. She closed her eyes as the alcohol hit her. Quote, Kurenai shook her head and rolled her eyes. Sometimes Anko was such a drama queen. Kurenai pried the bottle away from a protesting Anko and said, no getting drunk before a mission. Now hurry up, we don't want to keep the Hokage waiting. Anko pouted, who cares about the old coot? My mental stability is at stake here. Kurenai rolled her eyes once more. I think you lost it long time ago. By it, are we talking about our V card? 'Cause I know I didn't lose mine. In fact, I gave it away to a certain red-eyed chunin. Anko leered at a blushing Kurenai lecherously. Anko, don't say that aloud, Kurenai hissed. Anko pouted, you're no fun. Not what you thought a couple weeks ago, muttered a still scarlet-faced Kurenai. Naruto took in deep breaths to refill the oxygen that was lacking from his lungs. He looked up to see Guy still crying about how unyouthful his actions were. He was screaming self-repercussions he was going to inflict upon himself while Naruto looked back down while shaking his head. Sometimes, the man was an idiot. And all the time, Naruto was an idiot for training with him. He frowned as he thought he heard a female cursing the day as the bane of her existence or something, but he just shrugged. The inhabitants of Konagaku no Sato could be extremely weird. Example 1. Made a guy. After that, I shall crawl backwards up the Hokage monument. Hey Guy sensei. Yes, my youthful student. Weren't you gonna go run around the village? Indeed, I shall do that now. Ready, set, go. When his self-timer got to go, Guy sped off. Naruto sighed and shook his head with a slightly amused smile. He then turned his attention to the matters at hand. Forming the tiger seal, Naruto muttered a quick, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several plumes of smoke appeared and dissipated to reveal 20 clones. Naruto cheerfully handed out all the books to the grumbling clones and went back to his own. Man, why do we have to do this? Boss for making us do this. Boss blows. He really is an idiot. The real Naruto rolled his eyes. You diphthongs, I am you guys and you guys are me. If I'm an idiot, then we all are. Silence met the ears of the original Naruto, who had a satisfied smile on his face. There. That sure shut them the hell up. Score 1 for the original Naru. Surprisingly enough, Naruto finished reading the pamphlets and books of information in 2 hours. However, he found that he didn't really know a lot of the bigger and complicated words, so he also took to reading some dictionary books. All in all, he felt that it was a pretty productive day. It was definitely better than learning nothing at the academy. This time when he dispelled his clones, he made sure to do it at set intervals. His last experience with clones made him shudder with fear. The headache that came along with dispelling a massive amount of clones was most definitely not pleasant. So for the first set of dispelling clones, he dispelled 2 and found that the influx of information wasn't painful at all. He then dispelled 3 and found, like the first dispelling of clones, it didn't hurt. Feeling confident, Naruto dispelled 5 clones and also found, to his delight, that it didn't hurt. Now armed with an incredible sense of boldness, he dispelled the remaining 10 clones and shouted with triumph after he sorted through the information that was retained in the clones. Naruto frowned as he waited for a certain taijutsu specialist to return to his abode. He didn't have anything to do, so he wanted to train. It was that or go back to the academy for the remainder of class. And he wasn't gonna do that. Man, Guy Sensei is taking forever. I'm never gonna be Hokage at this rate. The blonde demon container complained. He went to smack his forehead out of habit when it actually came in contact with his forehead. Usually his goggles were there to protect it so he could actually put some force behind his habitual self-inflicting frustrated forehead smacking. Itai. What the hell? Where the hell is my GOGGO, damn it? I left it back in the classroom when the puppy chewed it up. Naruto raked his hands downward on his face as he let out a frustrated groan. Kuso. Where should I go to get a new one? Naruto sat down crisscross style with his arms folded on his chest as he tried thinking of how to obtain new goggles. Damn it. I wish I had someone to help me with this. If only I could. An idea flashed through his head, and he slapped his forehead again out of habit. Ow. Shit. But damn it. I'm such an idiot. Quickly forming the tiger seal, Naruto cried out, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 3 clones poofed into existence and sat with him forming a neat little cross. The clones raised their eyebrows in a questioning manner. Why are we here, boss? Naruto nearly slapped his forehead again. How do you guys not know? You guys are me. We should have the same thought process. Drawing blank looks from his clones, Naruto pouted, I need some help with finding a new set of goggles, so getting this amazing idea, he gestured to the clones, of forming a Naruto committee. I summoned you guys. One of the clones dispelled from slapping his forehead too hard. The clone didn't know if the boss was a genius or an idiot savant. The original Naruto narrowed his eyes at his dispelled clone's thought. Naruto quickly replaced that Kage Bunshin and he turned to the clones now present. Alright. I need ideas now. You could have us henge into a pair of goggles. One of the clones suggested excitedly. No. You can go without the goggles. Not doing that either. You can draw the goggles on your forehead. Kami, you guys. Hey. Were you? HMPH. The real Naruto took on a bored expression as his clones discussed in the most absurd way of how to acquire a new set of goggles. Eventually, Naruto stood up and shouted, all right, enough. Forget all your stupid ideas. Everyone is gonna use a henge to find and buy one. Immediately, all the clones protested this simple idea by shouting that their idea was better and more sophisticated. The original Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose as he tried to control his anger. Face twitching with irritation, the original Naruto growled. Suddenly, another brilliant idea sprang to mind. Alright. First one to bring the same styled goggle will get the limited edition cup of ramen. All arguments and protest ended with the clones stumbling and tripping over each other while they headed to the exit, screaming passionately about their sacred and beloved ramen. Oi, you bastards. When you're done, I'm gonna be at the training grounds. Naruto yelled after them. The clones flipping him the bird showed that they had acknowledged his statement. Naruto sighed as he locked his door and left a note to Guy that explained he'd be at the training grounds. Man. Disrespectful clones. Naruto mentally grumbled. Yosh. Time to get out of here. Excited at the prospect of training, Naruto dashed to his intended destination with eagerness. From the trees, Guy stood on a branch with the side of his shoulder against the tree for support. He watched Naruto leave his apartment with a proud gleam in his eyes. Guy sighed. I really don't want to give him to you. I have grown most attached to the youthful boy. Ma, it's not like you won't see him again. Besides, I'm sure you'll be getting your genin team in the next year or so. Came the voice of one Hatake Kakashi. Guy scowled slightly. Even so, what happens if he wishes to pursue taijutsu as his specialty? It won't happen, Kakashi replied flatly. Seeing that Guy was about to argue, Kakashi quickly held his hand up, but in the tiny whimsical chance that it does happen, he will be your main student. Regardless, I will help him better himself as a shinobi, no matter what. Satisfied with the smile, Guy nodded. Of course, that is in your right, seeing as to how the father was your sensei. You know, the boy reminds me greatly of our youthful comrade Obadiah, wouldn't you agree, my rival? Guy sighed as he didn't hear a response. However, this response, or non-response, was to be expected from his rival. Guy looked to his left at the now vacant spot where Kakashi had been with a sad look. Approaching the subject of Obito Uchiha with his youthful rival was obviously still a sore subject. It was ironic really. Naruto was very much like Obito in both appearance and mentality. Both were rather loud and lacking in the academy. If someone were to dye Naruto's hair black, they would be hard-pressed to identify him if they were looking at him from the back. Now if you kept the dyed hair and replaced Naruto's blue eyes with the classic Uchiha eyes, you would absolutely be unable to tell the difference. Of course you gotta remove the whiskers too. He looked towards the direction that his young student had left in. Hopefully Naruto could restore Kakashi's will of fire completely. Naruto undid his henge as he reached the training field he used to usually train with Guy. Standing in place, he stood on his tiptoes and stretched his limbs towards the skies. Coming back down, he yawned and slammed his fist into an open palm. He grinned, all right. Let's get down to business. With that being said, he formed the tiger seal and yelled, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Two shadow clones popped up and immediately went into the Goken, Iron Fist, stance and faced the original. Naruto grinned, alright you bastards. Sparring time. Bring it on. The two shadow clones immediately shouted battled cries before charging at him. Naruto smiled wryly. Was he really that dumb? He realized that there was chance that he'd probably, actually no, he actually would do that if it was a fight. His smile turned into a frown. He'd have to fix that mentality, otherwise it'd become a big issue. His musings was cut off as the Kage Bunshin sent a sweeping low kick and a punch aimed at his face simultaneously. Naruto smirked. Although his clone's battle tactics were a bit flawed, he couldn't help but admit that the tandem in which his clones attacked in was pretty dang good. Realizing that the attacks were about to land if he didn't do anything, he leapt backwards to avoid the blows and settled into his own Goken Iron Fist stance. The excitement was palpable from his body as his gaze darted to and from between his two opponents. There was no panic for him because he's been in situations very similar to this. Bullies and villagers always came at him in numbers. It was the only chance they had really. If it was one-on-one, he'd simply run away. He wasn't ever allowed to fight back, but seeing as to how the villagers and shinobis were getting bolder, so to speak, he had to learn how to take on multiple opponents. Besides, you'd never know what would happen on the battlefield as a ninja. There'd probably be times in which he'd find himself outnumbered. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he analyzed his current situation and his next course of action. The Kage Bunshins, seeing the calculative eyes of the original, split towards two different directions. Trying to keep out of his line of sight as much as possible, the clones rested on the peripherals of the real Naruto. Naruto smiled. Guess his clones actually weren't that dumb. He paused for a moment and frowned. He essentially just called himself dumb. He shook himself out of his musings as his Kage Bunshins came at him from both sides. Just as the hits were about to make contact, Naruto jumped and sent his legs towards both sides, effectively stalemating the punches aimed at him in midair. Instead of letting his clones recover from their slightly shocked stupor, Naruto seized the opportunity and kicked off a fist of a clone that sent him towards the other clone that was still in contact with his foot. Latching onto the forearms and bicep with his hands, Naruto swung the foot that he kicked off of the other clone and sent it crashing into the clone's face he was currently latched onto. Naruto smirked as the clone he had just hit dispelled. As soon as he landed, the clone he now had behind him came in with a kick of its own. The original Naruto, having just landed, sensed that he had no time to dodge. So he did the next best thing you could possibly do when a hit was imminent. Guy-sensei had taught him that sometimes you couldn't escape a situation no matter how much effort you put into avoiding it. Sometimes no, eventually, you will have to face the problem. This could apply to every aspect in life, not just action-oriented situations, but tactics, politics, and definitely romance too. When Naruto had been told that, he nodded sagely, as if he understood everything that Guy-sensei had just said. He could have if he wanted to, but he didn't care about those things. Action was what Naruto was about, so he paid little attention to the other things Guy-sensei had lectured him on. It's not like he had to worry about any of those things anyways. Yet. But just because you had to face a situation head-on didn't mean you go charging in and meeting it. No, Naruto knew from instinct that there were different ways to approach a situation. One way to deal with a situation was to simply, as the saying went, roll with punches. So that's exactly what he did with his clone's kick rapidly approaching him. He rolled with it, going in the direction the kick would have careened him towards. He passed the solid contact as a glancing blow. It stung, but it wasn't nearly as painful as how it would have been had the kick made direct contact. He recovered in a kneeling position whilst caressing the right side of his face. He grimaced as he felt the slight swell on his jaw, that was gonna leave a mark. The Kage Bunshin smirked and the original scowled, seeing arrogance on his pseudo-body irked him. Definitely don't like the tem. Gotta fix that if it becomes a problem. Confidence is okay, arrogance is not. Both clone and original Naruto shot off towards each other and engaged in an exchange of fists, kicks, elbows, and knees. Eventually Naruto managed to one-up his clone by sending a fierce kick towards his clone's knee. Naruto panted slightly. His stamina was nothing short of amazing, but facing someone who was of the same caliber as you would wear you down. Shaking his head, he formed the tiger seal and formed 5 Kage Bunshins. Everyone took their respective Goken stance and faced the original. Naruto grimaced. It was gonna be a long day. Do you understand your objectives? Hi, Leader Sama, came a certain monotonous voice. Yes indeed, Leader Sama. Another silky voice hissed. The mysterious shadowed figure shrouded in darkness seemed to have given a curt nod. You are both dismissed. Itachi simply turned to leave as the figure that had dismissed him seemed to have dissipated into thin air, showing that he was never really there. What's the rush, Itachi? Surely you can wait a few moments, Kukuku. Itachi sighed and turned towards the person, and he used the term, person, loosely, who had just addressed him. Just make sure you do your part of the mission, any other objectives are not a priority. I hope that is clear with you, Orochimaru. The snake Sanin snorted. Of course not, Itachi. I would never jeopardize the mission for my own agenda, Kukuku. The pale-skinned man walked on ahead before smiling deviously. Soon, very soon, your body will finally be mine, Itachi. Itachi narrowed his eyes after his partner for this mission. Kusu. Naruto groaned. That was one hell of a workout. Naruto was on the grass lying down face up. He drew in a relaxing breath as the wind ruffled his hair lightly. His gaze went up to the clear azure sky, appreciating everything within his sights. The sun shined brightly as Naruto held his hand up to it. Wind blew gently, caressed his skin and parted his hair. Naruto sighed. It was such a nice day to relax and enjoy the day. He closed his eyes and drank in the peace. He took in a deep breath and exhaled, phew. Today is such a nice day. I'm glad I could enjoy the peace. Boss. I got it. Boss. Hey boss. Naruto groaned. So much for enjoying the tranquil serenity of Mother Nature. Well, at least it was just one clone this Tim. No wait boss. I have the better goggles. Another clone yelled from different direction. No you don't. I totally have the better one. You fat turd. Naruto slammed his head against the ground repeatedly. For the love of Kami. Will you both shut the fuck? DYYYNAAAAMIC entry. Naruto stood up and threw his hands up in the air. Oh, for Kami's sake, why the hell no? You know what? Everyone leave right the fuck. Guy suddenly blurred over and gave the original Naruto an overzealous patting on the back, effectively knocking the original Naruto back into the ground. My student. Your youth is flaming bright today. It is a must for us to train to the max. Prepare for a surprise training session. A shinobi must never be caught off guard. Buphi already triumphed. Came Naruto's muffled reply, seeing as to how he was still being patted into the ground. What was that, my youthful student? I could not hear you over the youthfulness. Finally freeing himself, Naruto managed to sit up with a scowl on his face. I said, I already trained Guy-sensei. Nonsense. You call that training? Stretch it out, my young Padawan. Naruto blinked. What the hell is a Padawan? Guy smiled cheerfully and yelled out, I do not know either. But it seemed to have fit the youthful flow of the statement. Now prepare yourself. The two clones who had showed up looked at each other and nodded with a mutual understanding in their eyes. The special edition ramen was not worth witnessing this shit. Yelling out a quick, good luck, to their original, they dispelled themselves, leaving two goggles in their places. Traitors. Naruto muttered before turning his attention to his taijutsu teacher. He shook his head and sighed before a determined look came across his face. Alrighty, Guy-sensei, this better help me become Hokage Datbao. Yosh. If my youthful student does not become Hokage, I will. Naruto knew it was better to censor out Guy-sensei's rant in his mind and focus on other things. Single quote. Konoha senpuu, leaf whirlwind. Guy cried out as he twirled in the air to land a kick on Naruto's face. Normally, that move wouldn't have caught Naruto off guard, but unfortunately, he was musing on potential names for the soon-to-be his pup. The kick sent him rocketing towards a tree. And that, my youthful student, is exactly why you must not ever be caught off guard. Naruto moaned in pain as he picked himself up from the now fallen over tree. Ughhhh, he touched his cheek tentatively and winced as he felt the swollen lump of skin. Hell, that hurt. Naruto muttered to himself. He shook himself off and faced toward the middle of the training grounds where his teacher was standing with a stupidly large grin plastered on his face. Naruto grimaced. Time to get beaten up. X. With a grunt, Naruto kicked his door open and shuffled inside much like a zombie. He paused for a moment. He supposed in a way he was a zombie. After all, that training session he had just partaken in pretty much killed him. He tiredly sauntered over to the bathroom and took off his clothes. He looked in the mirror and Wolf whistled. Damn, I'm looking pretty good. The hard work of chakra-induced physical training was definitely showing. Although he was still pretty scrawny, he wasn't all bone now. There was a slight tone of muscle in his arms and sings of a soft 4-pack of abs were beginning to show. A few more months of working out hard along with a proper diet would make him fill out much more nicely. He became giddy with excitement. Who didn't love seeing a noticeable improvement? So with thoughts on his future. Man, I can't wait to see what I look like in a few months. At this rate, I'm gonna be Hokage in no time, Datbao. An exhilarated Naruto thought. Then he became slightly crestfallen. Damn it. I forgot I can't eat as much ramen now. This so much donkey no. This is a sacrifice I have to make to get better. Alright. Now the book on proper dieting said I should eat protein-filled meals. Alright, chicken and beef were pretty high in protein and I can just add seasoning with brown rice. Man, that is so much freaking cooking. How the hell am I supposed to wait? Seriously, he needed to stop forgetting about the most amazing jutsu in the world. Naruto grinned as he muttered a quick, Kage Bunshin no jutsu. Plumes of smoke suddenly encased the tight space of his tub as he summoned 3 butt. Naruto stared at his counterparts with a rather blank owlish look. They stared right back with the same expression. Someone coughed. Well, this is awkward. Another pause. Does this make us gay? A clone whispered horrifically. Awkward silence permeated the air around the tub filled with Narutos. Someone coughed again. Can you guys get out and cook now? Surprisingly, No one protested and they carefully exited lest they touch each other with certain appendages. When the last clone left, Naruto slapped himself on the forehead on purpose this time. This smack was well deserved. Never, ever, was he going to repeat that mistake. Naruto eventually got out of the shower after a relaxing 15 minutes. He would have stayed longer, but the eventual aroma of seasoned chicken and beef wafted through the crevices of the door. When he got out to the kitchen, there was a plate loaded with veggies, chicken, beef, and brown rice. He frowned while looking around. Where the hell are the clones at, huh? What's that note? Seeing a piece of paper on the corner of the table, he walked over and examined it. To the original. We have done as you asked. Now we ask a favor of you. Never ever summon us in such close proximity without clothes. Ever. Signed. Clone 1, 2, and 3. Naruto nodded furiously in agreement. Yes, no one shall ever hear the light of day about this. Silently thanking Kami for having no one there to witness his embarrassing plight, he sat down and looked his food with evident desire. It looked pretty dang good. Thanking his clones and muttering a quick, "Itadakimasu," he began eating. He chewed thoughtfully before blinking. It tasted basic. What the hell? Should have known better than to think his clones and by proxy, himself could make a 5-star meal on their first try. Oh well, what could he do but keep on practicing? With that thought on his mind, Naruto wolfed down the rest of his food and belched barbarically. He smacked his lips in a satisfied manner. Although it wasn't that good, it sure hit the spot, he said while patting his bulging stomach affectionately. After he felt digested, Naruto then began to perform his routine stretches. Guy-sensei told him he had to start implementing stretches daily, once after he wakes up, and once before he went to sleep. Guy-sensei had something about taller and more limber that would allow greater blah blah blah. All Naruto knew was that after a workout, stretches felt heavenly. So he did them, otherwise, he probably wouldn't do it, seeing as to how no one was there to force him to. After going through various stretches for about 15 minutes, he went over to his bed and collapsed on it with a satisfied moan. He released a big sigh and curled up to his little plush doll. Yes indeed, 10-year-old Naruto still has a giant toad plush. In all actuality, it was really freaking ugly. But still, it was his. He treasured everything he received as a gift. Naruto frowned. To this day, he still wasn't able to figure out on who even gave it to him. It was just there on his bed one day. Initially, he thought it was a trap. I mean, come on, a big plush staring at you in the eyes while sitting propped up dead center on the bed. To Naruto, that was suspicious as hell. So naturally, Naruto went to his good old Gigi and told him about it. But instead of being worried as he was, the Sandame had an amused expression. Ah, Naruto-kun, rest assured it is no trap. In fact, think of it as a gift from someone watching over you. Naruto had pestered and interrogated what he meant by that statement, but he never got a straight answer from the Hokage. Ah well, he had long since given up on finding out who had gave him his plush animal. Naruto yawned as he pulled the giant stuffed toad closer to him as he drifted to sleep. Naruto drummed his fingers against the desk relentlessly as he peered out the window. He had somehow managed to get to class a bit early again, and once again a certain Uchiha was near him. Fight me, Dobi. Naruto sighed. This had been going on for the past 10 minutes. You said so yourself. I am the freaking Dobi. Why would you want to fight the Dobi of all people? Shouldn't you fight Kiba or someone else? Naruto asked in an annoyed voice, though he suspected the reason of Sasuke wanting to fight him had something to do with Itachi. I don't care, Dobi. I demand a fight right now. Nah. I demand a fight as an Uchiha. I don't care if you're an Uchiha. Sasuke glared at the blonde before resuming his demands. You should be honored. Now stand up and fight. I don't wanna. Fight me, Dobi. Alright. Fight me. Wait, what? You agree? Of course you'll fight me. I am an Uchiha. I will always get what I want. Naruto held his chin thoughtfully. Alright, let's meet at Training Grounds 249. Where the hell is that adobe? Sasuke angrily asked. Don't tell me the almighty Sasuke-sama doesn't know where a simple training ground is. So much for being the superior intellectual being. Shut up, Dobi. I'll find it right now. Sasuke seethed before angrily storming out. Naruto leaned back in his chair and kicked his feet up on his desk and gave a relaxed airy sigh. A lazy voice spoke. There is no training grounds 249, is there? Naruto smirked before responding to Shikamaru. Of course not. I just had to get the tem off my back somehow, Datbeo. Shikamaru muttered a quick, troublesome, before placing his head down on the desk to sleep once again. Naruto gave an amused snort. He supposed that's why Shikamaru was always early, get those extra minutes of sleep before his troublesome mother scolded him for being a classic lazy Nara. Naruto decided to take a note from his fellow classmate and set his head down to sleep as well. Hopefully it would probably be a few days before Sasuke realized there wasn't a training grounds 249. 10 minutes later, he heard a person sliding into the seat next to him. Naruto sniffed once and internally rolled his eyes. Great, what does he want? Oi, Naruto, wake up man. Surprisingly, the one who responded to the rather obnoxious voice was none other than one Shikamaru Nara. Troublesome, Kiba, you're 5 minutes early. Go away or drag Naruto somewhere else. Or how about this guys, or how about you both go away and argue while I, the great Naruto Uzumaki, resumes his nap, huh? Kiba shook his head furiously. No can do. My mom would neuter me if I didn't do what she asked me to do. Naruto's head slowly went up and turned his head equally as slow towards the Inuzuka air. With suspicious eyes, Naruto stared at Kiba. What did your mom want? She wants you to have the name by the end of today. Alright, bye. Kiba rushed his words and made to get out of the seat knowing that Naruto would freak out, but instead of being quite a distance away, he found himself in an iron-like vice grip. What the hell? By the end of today? Kami. What kind of bullsh? Class is starting. Naruto. Don't you dare finish that sentence. The teacher screamed as she slammed the door shut. Kiba sighed in relief as Naruto released him. Kiba stuck out a tongue while Naruto grumbled about lucky mutts. Naruto paid no attention as the teacher began his lecture. Instead, his mind was running through potential names. If Sum-san wanted the name by the end of today, he pretty much had no choice but to pick a name. Sum Inuzuka was one of the women that he was pretty sure not to mess with. Let's see, what can I name a girl dog, Akame? Nah, this is too much of a responsibility for me. For the rest of the class, Naruto came up with potential names all the while scratching off other names he didn't like. So what do you think of that one? Naruto asked his companion. No, hell no, hell to the no, came the response. Naruto frowned. Why not? 'Cause you baka. No one would name their freaking dog Tutu, of all things. Naruto crossed his arms indignantly, but it's a cute name. A stupid name. Kiba corrected him. Why don't you come up with a better name then? Naruto challenged. I will, Kiba retorted. Naruto growled in annoyance. This has been going on for the past 20 minutes. Initially, he didn't want to discuss anything with Kiba, but the Inuzuka was insistent on escorting the blonde to his home compound. The whiskered teen was a bit annoyed at Kiba's gesture, but there wasn't anything he could do about it. When they stepped out of the academy, Naruto mentally hit himself. Already the villagers were staring at the pair of boys with loathing and contempt. Although it was mostly directed at Naruto, a few stares seemed disgusted at Kiba being near the Jinchuriki. Naruto prayed to Kami that Kiba wouldn't notice the glares, but alas, Kiba wasn't that oblivious to his settings. When Kiba turned to Naruto with intent to ask why the villagers were glaring at them, the blonde boy hastily requested that Kiba immediately helped with coming up with a good name for the pup. 20 minutes later, they found themselves deeply rooted into the process of naming the dog. Which was what they were currently arguing about. Okay, how about Mimi-chan? Naruto stopped walking and looked at him with a deadpanned expression. I'm not naming her. Ears, Naruto shook his head, and you call me stupid. What? A ninkin is your second set of senses, man. What's the big deal? Then why didn't you suggest Shisen eyes? That doesn't sound very female-like, duh. Kiba rolled his eyes. Kami, you're an idiot. I know. Kiba admitted rather proudly before looking at his blonde friend, but you're the Dobie and I'd rather be an idiot than a Dobie. Naruto sighed. Whatever, we're here now, so let's get this show on the road. Dude, who even says stuff like that anymore? Screw off. Sume twitched her eyes dangerously. Tutu. That's the name you want to put on one of the most powerfully bred dog out there. She pinched the bridge of her nose in irritation. Why pup, why? The whiskered blonde swallowed nervously. 'Cause it's cute. Naruto cowered as he felt the omnipotent pressure that seemingly every woman was able to exert. To his side, Kiba was struggling to contain his laughter lest he get the same treatment as his classmate. And you, Kiba. Kiba blanched. Shit. How could you let your friend even think of something stupid like that? But mom. Don't you? But mom, me boy. You know better than that. Sume scolded. Naruto tugged at the collar of his jumpsuit nervously as Sume proceeded to beat down her son. He slowly edged toward the exit while making himself small as possible. As he turned to twist the doorknob for his exit, he shuddered as he sensed someone behind him. And where do you think you're going, pup? Naruto gulped. After Naruto received a bit of a harsh scolding from the head of the Inuzuka head, he was sent out of the compound to his house. Naruto nursed the bruise forming on his head. Apparently, he wasn't putting enough effort into the name. The blonde Jinchuriki frowned. I didn't know that naming a puppy was such a big freakin' deal. Naruto muttered to no one in particular. He gave himself a frustrated forehead smacking only to find that he still didn't have his goggles. Again, ow damn it. I forgot my goggles at the training grounds yesterday. Naruto groaned. Guess I gotta head to the training grounds. Naruto grumbled to himself. Maybe I'll get some light training in. With those words, the blonde started walking towards the training grounds. Dipping into an alleyway, Naruto hid himself from the public eye. He hinged into another civilian that didn't stand out much and rejoined the bustling village. As he headed toward the training grounds, he noticed that the day was still early, maybe noon, at the latest. He pondered as to why he had so much time left for several minutes before coming to the conclusion that the new academy teacher wasn't prepared to fill Iruka-sensei's role. Oh well, I'll just train while coming up with the name. After all, Cage Bunchins are just that awesome. Naruto thought aloud. Realizing that he had reached his destination, the whiskered blonde summoned several Cage Bunchins to roam the training ground in search of his goggles. Several minutes later, the Cage Bunchins convened where the original stood and presented the goggles to him. Naruto adjusted the goggles onto his forehead and sighed comfortably. It just felt so right. Looking at the clones, Naruto then proceeded to instruct that they sit down and come up with a name. The 10 clones he summoned then went to a more secluded area and sat in a circle to discuss names. The original Naruto yelped a quick, Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, and summoned several more clones to spar with. Several hours later, Naruto was found lying down panting heavily on the ground. So much for light training. It seems his clones didn't give two flying shit about him and definition of light. The blonde groaned as he uprighted himself and started heading towards the circle of sitting clones. So did you guys come up with a name? A bruised original Naruto asked. Oh yeah, we came up with in the first couple of minutes. A clone replied casually. The real Naruto looked slightly offended. The hell? Why didn't you tell me immediately? Well, we don't really get out much, so we just enjoyed being outside. Another clone answered. The original paused. Alright, fair enough, but the name better be good or else. Were you remember? Of course you're gonna like it. Alright, let me hear it. The name we decided is. Insert dramatic pause. Big ol' penis. What the flying foo? Just kidding. We decided to go with sake. It means blossoming hope. It's good nay. Hey, that's actually a good name. Good job everyone. Without waiting for their response, Naruto immediately dispelled them. Yada. I'm gonna go tell Suum-san right now. Naruto excitedly hinged and ran towards the Inuzuka compound with obvious eagerness. What do you mean I have to take a test? Naruto yelled. He repeated his yell again in pain as Suum bopped him on top of his head. Don't you bark at me, pup. Suum glared, efficiently silencing any protest that Naruto was about to voice, before continuing, and the reason for this is because I don't know how adequate your knowledge is about taking care of a dog. But you gave me the books to study for this moment. Suum held her hand up. I know, pup, but who's to say you actually did read it? I'm not saying you didn't, but you still had the rest of this week to read it, so you could have held off on reading it. Naruto took on a contemplating face before blowing out a conceding breath. Man. Fine. That's fair. I guess, I'll take the stupid quiz. Suum gave an amused scoff before nodding in satisfaction. She promptly began questioning the young blonde about various aspects of taking care of a ninkin and puppy in general. When Naruto answered all the questions to Suum's satisfaction, she slapped him on the back. Good job, Gaki. Knew you weren't an idiot my son made you out to be. Naruto's smug facial expression soured into a scowl. What? I am not an idiot. The teachers are all just giant douchebags. I swear they can rival the douchebaggery of the Hyuga and the Uchihas. Suum punched the boy on top of the head before chuckling. No slandering names in my house. Understood. Hi Suum-san. So what do you think of the name? Did you like it? Naruto nervously asked. As Suum stared at Naruto impassively for several moments, Naruto fidgeted and hastily spoke. But oh, of course I can change it. I'll just come back tomorrow or by sometime this week with a better and more reasonable and suitable nom. I like it. Suum grinned at seeing the face plant of the boy. Messing with the boy was pretty entertaining to say the least. When Naruto recovered, he had an excited smile on his face. Yay. I did pretty good, huh? Suum patted the boy on the head affectionately. You didn't do too shabby, pup. Naruto's eyes gleamed with pride as he bowed. Thank you, Suum-san. The Inuzuka head gave a surprising genuine smile and told him to wait there while she went to go retrieve his puppy. Naruto bounced with excitement as he waited. An irrevocable smile painted itself on the whiskered face of the Jinchuriki. Oi Dobi, what are you doing in my house bouncing around like an idiot? Kiba Inuzuka all but yelled as he came into the room. Oh, what's up, Baka? I'm getting my puppy now. Naruto shouted back excitedly. You know, I've been meaning to ask, what kind of puppy are you getting anyways? Don't you remember the pup you brought to class? Naruto questioned. Kiba's eyes widened. Whoa, what? I thought mom just wanted to make you take care of the puppy for a bit cause we had no room in the kennels, not actually give you it. That makes little to no sense, man. We don't have any rooms in our compound at the moment, so I thought you'd be like a temporary dog sitter or something. Naruto shook his head with the smile on his face. Nope. And you know what? It has chakra coils, so that means I bonded with a ninkin. Nope. Bullshit. Kiba interrupted flatly. Naruto's smile that seemed forever happy dampened a bit into a pout. What do you mean? You can even ask your mom. No way. Every Inuzuka bonds with a ninkin for the rest of their lives. Why would it pick you over me? You're not even a part of any clans. How did an orphan get their ninkin before a ninkin-partnered clan heir? Kiba yelled angrily. The words that left Kiba's mouth stung at Naruto. Maybe Kiba was right, was he actually worthy to be a companion to a ninkin? He was just an orphan. He was just a nobody who just so happened to be in the right time at the right place. Kiba Inuzuka. How dare you even think of those words? Hana Inuzuka was considered more even-tempered than that of her kin, but even she had low tolerance to certain things. Degrading someone that doesn't deserve any of it was one of the things she held no tolerance to, so imagine her coming home from her duties to hearing her little brother being such an inhuman. Needless to say, it did not make her happy, at all. Kiba paled as he recognized the voice while Naruto looked around to identify the rather terrifying tone the person had yelled in. Hearing incoming footsteps pound their way through the hallway, Naruto and Kiba's focus zoomed in on the entryway the footsteps were heading toward. Hana had long brown hair which she wore in a ponytail with 2 locks of hair framing her face over her large, black eyes. She also had a light shade of lipstick on and has the traditional fang-like tattoos of the Inuzuka clan on both of her cheeks. Kiba Inuzuka, how dare you act like that to one of your classmates? Iata. Naruto gulped nervously. Nay, Kire na Oni-san, hey, pretty older sister. You don't have to yell at him, I actually don't know what I was thinking when I wanted to adopt the puppy. Naruto confessed. Just then, Tsume walked in with the puppy and the baby canine immediately barked in excitement as it sighted the familiar mop of blonde hair. Tail wagging as Tsume set her down, the puppy immediately bolted towards Naruto and jumped to tackle the blonde. Whoa, hey there little girl, how've you been? Haha. Naruto held the puppy and laughed as the puppy licked his face. Bark. Bark bark. Hana Inuzuka decided to speak then. See Naruto. The puppy loves you, and as long as you love it back, there won't be an issue, so make sure you love that puppy with everything you have, got it? Naruto nodded and thanked Tsume and Hana as he held the puppy to his chest. He gave a deep bow to the 2 elder Inuzukas before leaving without acknowledging Kiba. Said Inuzuka air was found creeping away as Hana rounded her fury towards him, and where the hell do you think you're going? Kiba paled. Tsume frowned. What's the issue, Hana? Hana grabbed Kiba by the scruff and proceeded to tell their mother about what Kiba had said. Tsume stared at Kiba impassively as the child gulped. I'm in trouble, aren't I? Kiba whimpered. Intense screams of pains could later be heard from the Inuzuka compound for hours. Naruto hinged into another random civilian and looked at Sake to see her taking on an adorably confused face. He picked her up and brought the pup to eye level. Don't worry Sake-chan, it's just a disguise. He undid his henge, see. Sake simply wagged her tail and attempted to lick his face. Naruto chuckled as he set her back on the ground. Alright Sake-chan, let's go get you some food. Naruto declared as he redonned his disguise technique. About 15 minutes later Naruto found himself standing in front of the Inuzuka compound. I can't believe the Ninken store is connected to the freaking compound. He looked down at Sake. Go figures huh? Bark bark. Naruto chuckled and walked in the store with his puppy in tow. As he pushed the door open, bells jingled and he heard a quick greeting. Welcome to the Inuzuka. Suddenly, without him even noticing it, Naruto felt a kunai pressed against his throat and heard the assailant speak in low voice. Where is he? Where is who? Bark. Bark. RGGGHH. Naruto heard the dog growl and leap at his assailant only to hear a thud followed by silence. Sake. Naruto cried out. In a moment of adrenaline-fueled strength, Naruto loosened the grip and threw his assailant over his shoulder. Immediately, Naruto turned his attention to his dog and picked her up. Where is he? The assailant hissed. Naruto turned towards the voice. Where is WH-Na-chan? I won't ask again. Where the hell wait what? Don't you recognize me Dadbayo? Naruto cried out. Hana Inuzuka narrowed her eyes at the man in front of her. Where did you get that puppy? Sake-chan. She's mine. We literally just met like 20 minutes ago. Why don't you recognize oh? Shit. Sorry. Naruto quickly undid his henge to see Hana's tense stance. Hana, realizing who the man was, took on a horrified expression. "Oh Kami. I am so sorry. I just thought you were someone who had hurt well, you. And then you somehow had kidnapped Sake into following you and Nei-chan. It's okay. I promise Datbeo. But can you fix Sake-chan now?" Naruto asked. Hana had the decency to at least look sheepish before she ushered Naruto and Sake into the clinic room. Nei-chan. It's okay. I promise. Naruto told her for what seemed like the 100th time. Hana was horrified that she had knocked out Sake and attacked a civilian, and to make it worse, it was a 10-year-old boy. Apparently, Hana Nei-chan thought that a random civilian had done something with him and had taken his puppy as a trophy. No, it is not. Not only does this step on my morality, it's pretty freaking illegal for shinobis to attack civilians. But I'm gonna be a ninja soon. Naruto countered. But are you a ninja as of? Hana argued back. No, came the sullen voice of Naruto. You know what? Since I did all of that, I'll give you your dog supplies for free. How does that sound? Hana offered with a grin. Wow, really Nei-chan? The boy excitedly asked. Yeah, but don't tell my Ka-san, she wouldn't be too happy about what happened today, you know. Oh yeah, I completely understand. Wait, before anything, can you give Sake-chan some treats, to stop the growling and all? Naruto trailed off while looking at his growling pup. Sake-chan still seemed to be bitter about Hana knocking her out. Oh, sure, I'll get this really popular and nutritious one. Hana went to the back and rummaged through the premium packages that were of the highest value, containing various dog-related items. Eventually, the daughter of the Inuzuka head came back and came with a moderately sized bag of dog treats. Still, Sake-chan growled and her fur bristled at the sight of the eldest daughter. Naruto walked over and petted her soothingly. Sake-chan, it was an accident. It just shows she cared for you, ne? Hana smirked. She'd like to see the dog be angry at her after these scrumptious delectables she's about to feed her. With the same smirk on her face, Hana opened a bag and brought out a thin piece of jerky. Immediately, a suspicious glare was aimed toward the delicious-smelling treat from the Tibetan Mastiff pup. Instantly, said puppy was sitting on her haunches in front of Hana expectantly. Naruto gave another chuckle while Hana's face turned a bit smug. See, Naruto. Dogs can never resist a treat like this, she said while giving Sake another piece. Naruto rolled his eyes. Yeah, whatever. Can we get to shopping now? A man with waist-length, spiky white hair that was tied back into a ponytail, with two shoulder-length bangs framing his face, speedily walked towards the Hokage Tower. His attire consisted of a green short shirt, kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that was visible at his wrists and ankles. He also wore hand guards, a black belt, traditional Japanese wooden sandals, and a red haori with two yellow circles on each side, and he wore a horned Hittite that had the kanji sign, U oil. This man was known as Jiraiya of the Densetsu no Sannin, the legendary three ninjas. The Sannin had recently been in touch with Itachi, an agent that was now covertly working for his spy network. He had received word that the new organization known as Akatsuki was making a move that could be a catalyst for another war. The Gamma Sennin, frog sage, jumped up and opened the window. The Sandaime Hokage frowned upon seeing the serious visage of his student before removing the tobacco pipe from his mouth. Jiraiya, what are you doing here? Sensei, we need to talk. Sarutobi Hiruzen rolled his eyes. Obviously that seems to be the case, but what I was asking was, what exactly are you here to talk about? Now if it's about your new book, I told you I wanted to be surprised. Itachi Uchiha and Orochimaru. Suddenly all business. Hiruzen straightened up with a serious expression. This was bound to be trouble. Explain. After Hana bought Naruto his various dog supplies, the blonde decided to go home. After all, it had been quite the busy day. As soon as he reached his house, he undid the henge he was disguised under and let Sake-chan into the house. Welcome to your new house, Sake-chan. Naruto watched on with fondness as the puppy barked once with happiness before scurrying with excitement. Almost instantly, a sense of foreboding came upon Naruto. Rapidly looking at everything that could possibly cause such feeling, his gaze finally fell upon an innocent-looking puppy. Naruto narrowed his eyes and spoke in a low voice, "Sake-chan." The puppy tilted her head back and forth in almost a smug fashion. Naruto crept towards his puppy speaking with the same low voice, "Sake-chan, whatever you do, don't." Just before Naruto was about to make a grab for her, he froze. Sweat started dripping down his forehead as he saw Sake lift one of her hind legs. What the fuck? Naruto quickly cut himself off as Sake seemed to have furrowed her eyebrows as if she knew he was cursing. I mean, Sake-chan, let's just go back outside, nay. Wouldn't that be so much better? Naruto nervously spoke. Since when did female dogs piss with a leg up anyways? I thought it was only the male. PSSSSSSSSSSSSS. Sake-chan no. 15 minutes later, the blonde Jinchuriki found himself vigorously scrubbing at the floors in an attempt to erase the scent of hot urine. The boy stared suspiciously at his Tibetan Mastiff as she curiously sniffed at various corners of the room. Sake-chan, Hana Nichan just gave us pee pads. Couldn't you wait several seconds? Geez. The puppy let a tongue loll out as she tilted her head back and forth that suggested mirthful teasing. Naruto shook his head and continued to scrub the carpet. And they said Ninkins were better wait. Naruto sniffed. What the hell is that smell? The blue-eyed child quickly found the source of his curiosity, and one word went through his mind. Shit. Pun intended.